If you're unfulfilled in your life, if you're just looking for that thing that you were created to do, this program is going to help you do that. We're going to help you align with your purpose. And welcome into the show, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Align with Your Purpose. I'm super excited today, and there's a lot that we have to discuss. I also want to make sure that you bookmark our website, alignwithyourpurpose.co. The brand new book is out. Make sure that you pick that up on Amazon.com and Kindle paperback or even audiobook format. Align with Your Purpose, available now on Amazon. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Mr. Amrit Sandhu. He is an amazing individual that I have the honor and pleasure of knowing, and I'm so happy to be able to call him friend. Amrit, welcome into the show.
Thank you, Earl.
Man, well, Amrit, we have talked about so many things over the past, oh my gosh, it's only been like a week now, that we've really been having some insightful conversations about our lives, about our beliefs, about the different things that we've been tackling in life over our entire journey of our lives. Amrit, some very special things are going on and happening in the world right now. And one of those things that I believe is happening is that we're becoming awake. More of the world is becoming more awake. What are your thoughts just about that?
Yeah. Earl, first of all, I'd like to thank you for coming onto the show. I think what you're doing here with this show is fantastic. I think there's a big need for it, and I am already a listener. So very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. In terms of, in all honesty, yes, it is happening. I think it's always been happening, but there seems to be some kind of bigger movement, greater movement happening more recently. If you look at, I don't know if that's because of the explosion of the internet, YouTube, people are sharing more things. Maybe it's that, but I'd like to call it something else. I would like to call it, the term awakening for me, it symbolizes a them and an us, or we're awake but they're asleep. I think it has a slight negative connotation. I think we're all awake. It just depends on what we're aware of whilst we're awake, and how more aware we become of things. So our awareness of the world is increasing if we so choose it. And from what I'm understanding, things that I would not have discussed or been confident in discussing openly with people, I'm seeing that those kind of conversations are actually happening a lot more through YouTube, through other people being open. And it's really incredible that this stuff isn't spoken about more. And I think this show that you've got is a big part of helping raise awareness of people raising their awareness.
And I appreciate that. I mean, it's a little bit of a daunting task to me to kind of, I guess, come out, as you would say, kind of come out with this type of information. It's a lot of the things that we'll be talking about and discussing in this episode with you and with episodes to come as well with other guests is the acceptance of it from traditional religious organizations. I get a lot of feedback in regards to this sounds like, woo-woo type stuff. This sounds like new age type of things that are going on, like from back in the 80s and the 90s. And what I've come to see it as, and I think one of the there's two things that are highly important for me for the belief system that I have, and that is love and that we are all one.
Yeah.
And from that perspective of love and the understanding of that we are all one, it makes it so much easier for me. And I think for people that accept this type of thing, it makes it easier for them as well to get rid of prejudice, racism, sexism, all the isms, that are
Yeah.
that are out there. Because, as you know, I mean, in the world that we live in the political climate and everything else, it isn't us against them. It does not seem to be that in mass media anyway. It's
Hmm.
recognized that if you are feeling a certain thing and if you are experiencing a certain thing, it affects me as well.
Yeah. And not only that, I mean, there's a finite. We're all sharing the same air. Our bodies, they change every atom, I think, every cell rather,
Yeah.
every 6 months or so. So we are reproducing every cell, although it may look the same or slightly more aged, um, depending on what we put in it. Put too much alcohol, you're going to get, you're going to age faster,
Right.
and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, we are all, you know, influencing each other in many, many ways. And coming back to what you said, that we are all one. Um, I've I've been the kind of guy who has had time on my own, whether going to get the train to work in a 40-minute journey, and just seeing life go by. And I've been deep in thought in those moments, and
Yes.
I've been shown glimpses where my awareness has been raised. And I remember once I had this vision just walking to work, and what I was shown, it was a thought in my head, but it was enlightening. And what I was shown was that I could see all these people walking to work, um, but we were all coming from the cloud, but each of us
Mm.
was a drop of rain from this one source cloud, and
Ah, yes.
we would go back to that. But we're experiencing our individuation, which is a word which Neil Donald Walsh invented through his book
Yes.
Conversations with God. And I've read that book, so like I've loved that book. Every time I listen to it, it realigns me
Yes.
into and recalibrates me. So if I'm not feeling, and puts me back into the right place of where I'm being, and makes me realize, well, makes me makes me see the illusion of this reality for what it is. It's just an illusion.
An
We are
illusion.
not separate. Yeah, I mean, we're taking on board the idea that we are all one. We are taking on board that the fact that we are actually, the underlying belief is that if we're not separated, we're all one. So this is an illusion. The fact that we
Exactly.
are
I think
separated.
a lot of people that are awakened, and maybe I'll come up with a different word from awakened, but understand that we are all one, and that comes from the premise of that there is only one thing, which is God or the higher being,
Yeah.
or whatever it is that you want to call it, the universe. There is only one thing and one spirit that is in all and through all, and that is the connecting thing. And I talk about this a bit in my book, just about
Mhm.
understanding and realizing that we are all divinity, and I think people
Yeah.
struggle with that
Yeah.
word. And I'll ask your opinion of that, because my opinion is that that comes from the dogmas and the religious base that makes God out there and us down here. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah. I mean, I I'll give you a bit of background. I mean, Earl, you know that for the purpose of the listeners,
Yes.
a few years ago, I'm from a Sikh background, and I was exploring other religions, and I found it easier to relate to Christianity. I ended up deep in Christianity. I
Hmm.
became a bit of an extremist, actually, as a
Okay.
Christian, and I bought the idea of heaven and hell. In terms
Ooh.
of which had its own problems. Uh, the question again, could you repeat the question? I think I've gone off topic.
Oh, no worries. The question just is relating to is it dogma and religion that has separated us from God more so than it has brought us to Him? Because
Yeah.
there's this belief that He's out there or up there and we're down here and we're separate and all of that. And I'm of the belief that a lot of religion and dogmas have separated us from God as opposed to making
Yeah.
us one with God. And that word divinity, it's like that's blasphemy. You don't ever
Yeah.
consider yourself to be divine, those types of things.
Yeah. And this is, I guess, the conundrum, isn't it? That any religious order gives us. It's basically, oh, well, they say inherently there's something wrong with you. But don't worry, we have the solution. And now that you've been saved, you need to tell everybody that you love, otherwise they're going to go to hell. But they introduce us to the concept of God. But they still say, oh, you're separate from God unless you, I don't know, join our religion.
Yeah.
all this stuff that you need to do. And then the tremendous pressure of bringing in your family and giving 10% of your income for life. I mean,
yeah,
it is interesting because they're solving a problem that people have a yearning for something greater. And they're also creating that problem. So they're taking ownership of your relationship with God, with yourself, your higher self.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the ultimate sales pitch, isn't it, really?
Absolutely. This, you mentioned earlier, Neil Donald Walsh and his books, Conversation with God, and both of us are fans of those books. How has that, in its purest sense, influenced your thoughts and your beliefs to date?
I was very upset. I was very upset because I felt that I'd been led down a path which wasn't true, which this guilty path, which was you have to bring your family.
It is a lot of guilt, isn't it? I'm sorry, but it is a lot of guilt. It's like you can never feel good enough. You're just never good enough.
Exactly. And being from a Sikh background, with my mum's a devout Sikh, it was massively hard. And I was standing up against the family, and I totally took, I did what it said in the Bible, which is leave your family and stuff alone. Mm-hmm. In fact, they wanted, I haven't told you this, Earl, but they wanted my wife. They got my whole in-laws together. They want my wife to leave me.
Oh my gosh, no! Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but it was a bit of a false kind of threat. It was just trying to slap him in some sense into him. Obviously, that didn't happen. Stood by me, but they knew I was just going through a phase, I guess, or exploring something, and I myself walked off the religion because things didn't add up for me, and the holes were: why is a loving God punishing his own children or these other people? I mean, I'm from a Sikh background, and the Sikhs are a very small population in the world, extremely hardworking, and they're very well-to-do because they have a hard work ethic, and they are very generous. And I think when you start giving things away, you acquire wealth, and if there's hard work, it's these principles which can lead to wealth quite rapidly within a few generations. I'm lucky enough now that I don't have to work. Interestingly, the poverty I saw whilst I was in the church, we had there used to be small cell groups, and I remember one of the guys that was contemplating: do I sell drugs to kids or to get food on the table, or do I? And he was asking this question, wondering if it was right or wrong. And for me, the obvious answer was, "What the heck are you doing? You can't sell drugs to kids." But the reality is, I don't know, what his situation is. So who am I to judge? But it is a difficult situation. Any religion can put you into in terms of separation, in terms of owning that relationship. I think
it is. Yeah. It is kind of interesting that in a lot of different religions that are out there, and I don't want to sound like I'm coming down on religion because quite frankly, religion is what got me here
Yeah.
to the point where I am now on that path of seeking, in my late teens, early 20s, all the way now approaching the age of 50. Um, it's put me on a path to really discover the truth of God, which the only truth that anyone needs to really understand and realize is that God is love. And once you understand that principle, there's a lot of things you can throw away. Once you understand that principle and that God wants the highest thing for you, and whatever it is that you want, you can have that. It's a matter of getting in alignment with it. And you and I have talked a lot, and I don't
Yeah.
know that we've ever had a real deep conversation just in regards to. We have talked about meditation, but how
Mm.
important for you in your life has meditation become, or is it something that you practice?
Okay, so I always had difficulty meditating. I'll be honest.
Hmm.
Um, I used to fall asleep. It's so
Very easy to
relaxing, isn't it?
do. Yeah.
Yeah. And my mind would wander. I would find it boring. I mean, I actually went on a meditation course once, and they it was like a yoga course. It's by a guy called Sadhguru. He's quite famous online. It's Isha yoga. Uh, a slightly cultish feeling.
Hmm.
My policy is um, try it out. As long as it's not drugs and stuff, try it out, experiment, keep what works for you, discard what doesn't. So I did this meditation, and oh my gosh, um, they taught me these. I mean, these are all technologies which have been
Yes.
going on for thousands of years.
Yes.
And believe me, if you start meditating, you can reach a state of sublime, which I've never experienced um, with anything before. And you can reach that within 21 minutes. This was a 21-minute program. And
Hmm.
really, it's by manipulating your chakras. You build up this energy inside
Yeah.
of you, and then you release it, and it hits your head, and you have this amazing feeling of bliss. The only problem with that is it's so good that some people start forgetting about their bodies because they want to stay in this
Mm.
constant state of bliss. So it's
as
trying to get that
opposed to
balance.
as opposed to living in the now. And I think a lot
Yeah.
of times when people experience certain things like that, they forget that we're here now for a purpose. We're in these bodies for a reason. And we've chosen to come into these bodies, into this existence, into this time. And there's something that we need to do. And that's why, doing this show and writing the book align with your purpose. I just believe everyone has a thing that they're
Hmm.
here for. There's a reason that they're here. And it could be something that's personal, but in a lot of instances, I think that the gifts or the purposes that we have is for everyone else. It's so that
Yeah.
everyone else will be able to benefit from that. I mean, what are your thoughts behind that? Because I know you've discovered that there's a higher purpose that you have.
Yeah. So I believe from what the books I've read, from my own personal understanding, I'm a kind of person who likes to um, get insight from books and then apply it in my mind and think about it.
Hmm.
Like I said, I'll use what is good for me and discard what doesn't work, and
Yes.
what fits. And I believe that there's an evolutionary path of the soul, you could say, of our version of us. And I think that we do um, grow in this continuous development of growth across multiple lifetimes, thousands, millions. It's
Hmm.
up to us. And I think we're the authors of these. And it's a fascinating way to think. Um, you know, uh, that we are in. What it does, Earl, it puts us in the driver's seat. It's not saying, oh, there's
Hmm.
this God who's in control of us and he decides who goes to
Hmm.
heaven, who goes to hell. Um, Firstly, I don't even believe in the concept of hell.
Yes,
Why would
correct. You're right.
there's no place that this infinite God, which is everything, there's no place that this infinite God cannot be.
Right.
So why would it separate itself, first of all? And it would be impossible to separate itself.
Exactly.
That's the only thing, because it's everything. Anything that doesn't, everything that exists is it.
Yes.
Whether it's a he or she. Yeah, I mean, do I believe we have a higher purpose? I think this is a soul evolutionary path that we're on. I believe we are divinity that has chosen to forget that it is divine, and we are playing out this game. And we, ultimately, I mean, I was reading some science, because remember what I was saying? I said, oh, it would be good to get some scientific things on this. If you look at, I mean, my background is physics at university. So if you look at, and I studied that years ago, so I may be off key here, but there's very strange concepts, which is that you could have one particle appearing in two places at the same time.
Yes.
Right? Or several. And there's another theory which says that, there's only one electron in the whole universe.
Oh, my goodness.
Which is something I looked up. So, therefore, if things like that do exist, then we literally are all the same source. We are all the same. And this, hence the illusion. And I believe that we are, I prefer to live in a state where we are in control of that we create our world based on what we believe. And you said this to me the other day, Earl, when we were talking. You said, everybody has the same material. What's different between them? It's something inside of them that's different. I believe it's their beliefs and what they believe they can have.
Absolutely.
People in the Philippines in the past who have earned, they don't need as big wages as us here, because their costs are a lot lower, but they've earned peanuts, like, I don't know, $20, $30 a day. And I've tried to raise their game so that they can charge $200-300 a day, but they don't believe they can, even though they have the skills of people that can. And I think our beliefs literally do create our world.
They do. I mean, it's, when you talk to people about business and like raising their prices or something like that, it is a very strange thing to try and coach somebody in that arena, because you can only coach them with what they're comfortable receiving from someone else. If they're not comfortable asking for $200, they're not going to. It's just not in them to do that. And that could be cultural, that could be self-limiting beliefs, it could be a lot of things that come into play with it. Guilt, a lot of that, money issues, culture. There's a lot of things that go into that, but it does come down to one thing, and that is that individual and what they believe about themselves and what they believe about this universe that we live in. I mean, as we go into, we're about to wrap up here, but I wondered if you wanted. I know, right? Time flies.
Time flies.
You know that I'm about to go through a session with QHHT. Actually, I had a conversation about an hour ago with the person that will be doing that with me, and very nice gentleman named Joe here in Milwaukee, and it was such a comforting conversation. I called him out of the blue just to acknowledge that I was still committed to coming in on the 20th for the session, and he said, "That is amazing. That's great. What would you like to talk to me about now?" He just opened the platform.
Wow.
For me to just, he was concerned about me, and I felt that.
Yeah.
And so I just expressed those things. But you were the one that got me hooked on QHHT. And hopefully one day I'll be able to have some member of QHHT on the show, which I'm sure will happen. What was one of the most... Oh, go ahead. You're about to say something.
No, go on. It's the same thing. What was one of the most... Go on.
What was one of the most inspiring things or
Yeah.
rememberable things, or the thing that impacted you the most from that QHHT session? I'm not going to tell anyone what QHHT is. They can look it up and they'll discover what that is. But I
Yeah. Well,
just
I mean,
wanted to ask
yeah.
you.
To say what was the most. Um, I had initial doubts as well. I went in
Mhm,
it very much like it's not scientifically. Like, let's see what happens here. Will I even go under? I'm not going to
mhm.
believe anything that happens. Maybe they're trying to influence me somehow. Um, but everything's recorded, so you can listen to it back.
Yes.
Apart from the actual when you go under. They don't record that part for obvious reasons. They don't want you getting hypnotized or anybody listening to it getting
Yeah.
hypnotized
Right.
again.
Right.
For me, it was it was just really it was seeing things and knowing that I already always knew this stuff. I always knew this stuff, and also bringing more things out. And oh, I can hear
No. No.
the
Go
audio
ahead. Go
going.
ahead.
And bringing more things out of us, and knowing that we always have the answers, the truth inside of us. And you don't need to go through this ayahuasca drugs or people are going to the rainforest or dodgy places.
Yeah.
You don't need to do any of that. You can go through a quantum healing hypnosis session, and you have the truth within you. QHHT is just one method. I'm sure there are others, but there's nothing that I've seen that's worked as fast. One session. Usually people need years of meditation or, to get on this level. Interestingly, I did experience what we would call death and after death during a session. So it was amazing, and a feeling that I suppose the biggest high was knowing that was home. I experienced
Yeah.
true bliss, and there was no judgment. There was no judgment. That was my home, and I really missed it. A few days after, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I just want to go
But
back
you're
home."
always connected. We
Yes,
always have that connection to our higher self, and that's what the person I spoke with today that will be doing my QHHT session was saying. It's like you're so connected, and you're connected all the time,
yes,
and so that's comforting, and I'm sure that that's comforting to you. And I know that you're going to be back on the show. We're going to have
yeah,
you
yeah,
back again, and we'll
absolutely.
probably go. We're going to dive deeper into that. I'm trying to hold off on talking about it until I go through my session because
Okay,
I'm so excited
yes,
about going through that. But I kind of wanted to
yeah,
prime the pump with you, kind of
sure,
talking about it a little to titillate
yeah,
people a little bit,
yeah.
to tune back in for another episode. But Amrit, thank you so much for being here with
Uh,
me today. It's
my
meant a
pleasure,
lot,
my pleasure.
and man,
Uh,
I
uh,
mean, you're my friend for life. I'm sure.
yes, yeah. Well, likewise, this is the beauty of the internet. If it wasn't for technology, we would never have met. And I knew,
Yeah.
Earl, that I needed to get in touch with you. And let's see where
So
this
true.
keeps growing. You're my brother.
Well, yeah, and your mind. And thank you so much, Amrit, for being here. Everyone, please make sure that you check out the website, alignwithyourpurpose.co, and make sure to get the book, Align with Your Purpose, on Amazon. We'll see you next time.